to join us, gosh, a couple of months ago for our previous showcase. Our goal today is to discuss strategic planning and how we're working with cities, counties, agencies across North America to really implement holistic solutions with the objective of enabling our partners to move with agility and to be more aligned with your strategic plan. So we've noticed that people are coming to us at a faster pace than ever before to get these strategic planning solutions implemented. So we wanted to take this opportunity to show you what's possible when pairing our platform, our services organization to really implement a first-class solution. So with that said, these demonstrations aren't meant to be a final solution, but more to spark ideas and showcase how we approach executing work within Smartsheet and providing the visibility and the automation that is so desired. So with that said, we have a lot of really good content to share with you today. I'll speak quickly through this first section so we can get into in the fun stuff. Angie, we're going to go to the next slide for legal. There we go. And then we'll get into a quick round of introductions, which I will just handle here. Perfect. So Angie, if you will go to the next slide, we'll go into intros. So we'll do intros here. We'll go in a little background with Smartsheet. We'll discuss how to elevate your current strategic plan framework. We'll take you through a customer journey of actually aligning projects with your strategic plan, making sure we can ensure success before going into really generating visibility for various stakeholders. We'll close with how to make this type of solution actually come to life, and leaving time with some Q&A as well. And actually, after each demonstration, we are going to have about 5 minutes or so for questions. So you'll notice, I think in the bottom right-hand corner of everybody's screen is a little Q&A box that you can utilize to pop questions in, and we'll try to get them answered in real time. Sorry, Angie, I was all over the place with slides there. On to intros. Cool. So my name is John Martino. I'm an account executive working specifically with our state and local government partners on the West Coast. Joining me today, I have the dynamic duo of Amy Nguyen and Chaz Casaza, two of our really phenomenal solutions engineers, as well as our client services director, Sean Hardy. So let's get into a little bit. Smartsheet, right? As to who we are, at our core, we're a collaborative work management tool, which is really just a fancy way of saying we bridge the gap that exists between those traditional purpose-built systems that we all know and love, or have our own thoughts and feelings about, and the dynamic way that work really gets completed today. We've been in business now for over 18 years. We have over 3,200 employees worldwide. And we have partnerships with major state and local government agencies across the globe, including a few seen on the screen here. Next slide, please, Angie. So as to why customers choose to work with Smartsheet, I won't go through each one of these bullet points as I did on the previous showcase. I think the best way to summarize this slide is, number one, we are user-driven. We want to empower everybody with an intuitive platform, no code capabilities. You don't have to be an expert at coding to build Smartsheet solutions, to automate steps, design solutions, and again, fit those dynamic work needs. Number two, we truly can be configured to meet your agencies, divisions, teams, individuals where they are, and can be set up to grow with you as your needs, your requirements, grow and change. And number three, it's unifying. So bringing together people, information and data, conversations, content, other solutions, third-party software, whatever it might be, to align people with their work and provide a single source of truth, again, across that agency, division, department, whatever it might be. To simplify that even further, nicely timed, Angie, from a high level, no, perfect, next slide, that was perfect. There are three main objectives for partnering with us, and I think this really transcends all of our use cases across the board. The first is to standardize the tools and the methodology that's used, again, across your agency, division, department, with the goal of creating that single source of truth for everyone to operate from. Data is live, and we can create a clear window from the top down, so anyone at any time understands what's going on and where, especially related to your strategic plan. Second is focused around that strategic plan portfolio management, right? We want to implement systems and processes that will drive efficiency, enhance collaboration and communication, and provide visibility sort of at all stages. The idea here is we want to automate tasks that can be automated, and make it easier for all stakeholders to better understand what work needs to be completed and when, along with being able to, at a snapshot, determine, okay, are we aligned with our strategic objectives? Where do we need to pivot? Where do we need to strengthen? And the final piece is that resource management piece. Making sure that we have the right people in the right place at the right time, and making data-driven decisions when it comes to approvals, hiring needs, and being able to seamlessly integrate that aspect into your strategic planning process when it comes to, what are we going to choose as our pillars, and how are we going to make sure we're tracking towards that. Next slide, please, Angie. From a use case perspective, we've implemented workflows across every department, whether it's Public Works, Department of Health, Employment Services, Central IT, Department of Education, you name it. The real beauty behind Smartsheet is, again, we truly can meet each individual person and each individual group, division, department, agency, where you are now, and be a single source of truth for end users, all the way up through executive council, wherever you envision sort of that top level viewpoint being. Angie, next slide. So I want to quickly reframe, where our focus is for today. To do that, I'll use a story from a recent customer that we had. We had an agency from the state of Texas come to us with the goal of revamping their strategic plan. Like we often see, and might resonate with a lot of you, they spent a lot of time creating a good plan. It was a really, really solid strategic plan. But it sort of lived dormant in the background, right? It was on a PDF, really wasn't referenced often. There really wasn't a way to say, hey, are we tracking towards this? Couldn't provide a clear picture into where they started and where they are now, and didn't know, sort of what progress was made. This isn't every route, but the route that we took with this particular agency is we actually hosted or held a discovery workshop on site with our in-house consulting team, working hand in hand with them for 2 days to determine which solution would be the best fit for what they wanted to accomplish. This led to our team creating a holistic strategic plan solution that sort of spiderwebs each division within the agency together. There's a clear source of truth. Every stakeholder knows where to access relevant information, what the status is, are we aligned, are we tracking, where are we missing the mark. They've completely eliminated the need for unnecessary meetings, long email chains, eliminating the concern of having stale or inaccurate data, while also increasing the key metrics that they were tracking on across their strategic plan. So this is the goal, right? This is what the vision is. And we really can't thank you guys enough for the opportunity to showcase this vision with you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I will turn it over to Sean Hardy to kick us off. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, and nice to meet everyone. My name is Sean Hardy. I am a member of our consulting team here at Smartsheet, and I'll be walking you through what we see as kind of major pitfalls that could be happening inside of a transformation effort. We have been working at Smartsheet over the last few years and kind of have seen multiple solutions come up more often than not. And so because of that, we have tried to really excel in terms of building expertise, doing research, and building a perspective that can hopefully make your organization feel a little bit more confident using us for this effort. So are you poised for success or headed for failure with strategic transformation? What we know is that there are certain things that doom transformation at all organizations, no matter if you're a government agency or a business or a nonprofit. It can be literally anything. But those are specifically fragmented views. About 5% of leaders can see the total amount of work being done. Cross-functional complexity, as we know, working with other departments is often hard because there are different technologies, different processes, different tools in place. And then also disconnected employees. Only about 13% of frontline workers are aligned to the strategy of an organization. So what that creates is a lack of engagement, and just you don't like doing work that you're not told as to why it's being done. So most people want to understand why they're doing that work. What that results in, though, is more important, is that in a strategic transformation initiative, about 80% of the value is lost through poor execution. So project failures, delays, and missed opportunities for new projects. The way we mitigate that, though, is pretty critical. And I think the thing that I want to get through everyone's head through this conversation is that people drive transformation, And even though organizations often look a little bit like a pyramid, where you have leaders at the top setting strategy and then people towards the front line getting the work done, you have a myriad of other organizational structures in between. It can be PMOs, agencies, divisions. There's a lot of different structures that we've seen, but that being the case, there's still a lot of honeycombs of silos and different groups of people who are working around their own body of work. But what we find is that all the org value that's trying to be gleaned from a transformation is starting to get lost through poor execution, specifically right below the leader level. So if there's like an initiative to say, I wanted to do some cost capture for the amount of technology spend that we have, or these vendors that we have for public service work, if you want to get X value, 80% of the value you're not going to get is going to be lost through poor execution. And there's a myriad of reasons for that. But first and foremost, it's that leaders don't actually know what is going on, and they have blind spots to the amount of work happening across the org. Additionally to that, PMOs and agencies, divisions, they all have to work extra time, 120% of the effort you would normally expect to actually get the work done, because people are having to understand what other people are doing. Like if I have to go find out, what John and Angie are working on today in order to get my work done, and I have no clear way of doing that, that's going to take me more time than just getting the work done itself. And then all that results into more people at the front line being disengaged, which you don't want, because that means lower quality, less timely work. And also more attrition, which is the hardest part of any company, is hiring and keeping and maintaining talent. So to achieve ROI, we have to deliver that work. And in order to get that vision met at the leader level, we have to actually have the systems in place so that people can have accountability across the board. The risks that are here can be mitigated through a few methods. First and foremost, we need to create something that we're calling a culture of sustainable accountability. We've all experienced unsustainable accountability. And there's one example that we all have that's kind of cheesy, but it's the COVID years. Like everyone kind of came together to get something done, work towards a goal, and just ensure we're not missing any of the details needing to be had to set up the systems in place. But you can't have crisis after crisis after crisis is the way to manage your strategy. You have to have a input of work and a methodical way of approaching that work that then leads towards consistent outcomes. The way you do that is through ensuring leaders can see the insights of the work getting done from a resourcing perspective, from a prioritization perspective, from what's the new idea being brought from someone in a department A perspective. Then PMOs need to be able to see across each of the departments they're working through, bodies of work, BUs, what their individual kind of work product is, what the status of an approval is at this group, because we've all been waiting for someone else in another department to approve something and not knowing where that request is. But having that visible is helpful. And then finally, if we can improve engagement, we can also improve kind of retention, employee satisfaction, as well as just overall outcomes, which will make the work happen a lot quicker. And by doing this, we're creating a true kind of top to bottom connection between, I, Sean, am working on a project, and my COO, Stephen Brandstater, can see what I'm working towards. Vice versa, he sees the different projects that are happening across Smartsheet. Then, therefore, he can say, oh, this one doesn't make sense. We really need to be focusing our efforts here instead. Same thing can be said for state and local government. So the final bit is, if we can do this, we can mitigate risk and improve value ideally, and then push towards improving our outcomes and kind of respecting the duty we have to our constituents. And to recap, there are three major areas that we want to kind of hammer today. Solution-wise, we can help act decisively with transparency and insight by using these certain platform capabilities at Smartsheet. We have approval and governance workflows, real-time KPI tracking, standardized portfolio reporting. All of those things help improve visibility at that leader level that we talked about earlier. Ideally, we can also then use that to improve funds that are being used towards initiatives so that we're ensuring we're not being good stewards of the work we're being asked to do. Next, collaborating across organizations. Smartsheet can do integrations to different systems, so you can have a little bit less silos. We can do knowledge sharing through comments and proofing. We can do open digital workspaces for sharing, so you can search or find different groups across the organization that are doing other work like you. And that can ideally reduce that manual rework that we have to do all the time. Then finally, employee and participation with their own ownership. We can all be working towards less menial tasks by using a platform that can automate things better. So things like task automation, no code solutions for random parts of a process that need to be rebuilt, or AI enabled work. All that should ideally improve employee engagement and satisfaction. But I'm just talking about the benefits and the platform capabilities that we think can happen. I really want to make sure that our team can take a moment to show you what that looks like, because I know that's why a lot of you are here today. So I'll be coming back a little bit later to talk through kind of how we get it done, but I want to pass it over to Amy to show you what it looks like if we were to do it together.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sean. All right. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to be chatting with you all this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. Let me start sharing my screen. All right. So let's talk about how we take the strategic plan, the strategic transformation into action using Smartsheet. So as we walk through today's demonstration, I just want to set you up with a quick scenario on how we are using transformation or Smartsheet for strategic transformation. And let's say we are the fictitious city of Smartopia. So as a city of Smartopia, as you are trying to engage with your strategic plan, that plan is something that is developed by leadership, but the true work that it takes to achieve these plans are left to individual workers who are then responsible for turning those plans into action steps. And while those work efforts are important, there can be dozens and dozens of contributors who are kind of left to their own devices, so that the way that they're tracking their progress is sprawled across multiple disparate systems, and that can lead to two really difficult realities. First, this can make collaboration really hard to do. You're passing around multiple versions of an Excel file, you're tapping on shoulders, knocking on doors, waiting for that bi-weekly meeting to come around so that you can get an understanding of what your colleagues have recently done and what you need to do next. And second, because of this lack of collaboration, because things are sprawled, this means that there's very limited or even no visibility into the progress against these strategic initiatives for the multiple levels of people who are involved, right? Your project teams, your key stakeholders, your leadership, or your community and the constituents who are expecting you to follow through on these key things that are meant to make a positive impact on them. So we have these problems, we're experiencing these challenges. What is it that we can do? We can make an impact by centralizing our efforts into one standardized tool. So I'll be showing you how you can use a core Smartsheet application, maybe even our control center automation engine, to truly deliver on these meaningful, very important plans that you have made. Okay, so let's talk through some of the key themes that I want you to glean from today's demonstration. There is a way to align your efforts. Smartsheet is a fantastic tool for centralizing your work and creating standardization through one single, accessible, easy-to-use system. And by having work managed in a single tool, you can improve collaboration across multiple teams and departments who are involved with delivering on these strategic initiatives. And Smartsheet's going to offer you beautiful dashboards for digestible real-time insights so that anyone on your team can understand progress, develop quick insights, and make better, more productive decisions to get you all focused in the same direction toward your strategic plan. Okay, so finally, let's hop into our demonstration of how we get this done in Smartsheet. I'm going to navigate to our roadmap here, and this is going to help align, this roadmap is going to align those key things that I just talked about, right? Alignment, collaboration while executing on the work, and having dashboards for actionable insights. So we're going to start with the alignment piece, and I'm first going to take you into what we call an intake sheet. And the purpose of an intake sheet, right, this is a huge part of our solution. This is meant to be that single source of truth for tracking projects that we've identified that are going to support our progress toward our initiatives. So this could be a combination of new ideas that have been thought of by your team, ideas that are being reviewed, considered for execution, or they could be true projects that are in flight. You can see that on this intake sheet, each row is going to represent a different project, and we are capturing a lot of key details about each of these projects, right? We've got the name of the project, of course, the description of what that project is meant to get done, maybe its goals, maybe its benefits. We're going to track who's aligned to the project, the expected dates that this project should start and end, and super important for, especially for today's conversation, we need to know what initiative and what objective the project is aligned with. And capturing the initiative and objective is imperative for the reporting that we're going to see later down the line, right? If I have, let's say in my demo, I have 5 initiatives that our organization is trying to work toward. We want to create a more inclusive government. We want to be better about our environment. We want a safer community. We want to have better public transportation. We want to offer better pathways to prosperity, right? Those are the initiatives that, at least in this example, my organization wants to achieve. If I want to know, okay, what projects do I have that lend to each of these initiatives, and I want to see a report on how we're progressing toward those initiatives, then capturing this information is going to be incredibly important. So we'll come back to this idea a little bit later. Now, of course, you can capture on this intake sheet any information that your team needs to understand where the work is going to fit across the organization. This intake sheet is, of course, just an example. We can either use this exact sheet as your template, or you can modify this to be simpler or more complex, depending on your needs and what you need to track. Now, for those who are newer to Smartsheet, or maybe just newer in general to tracking projects, maybe you're not quite ready to adopt a full tool with lots and lots of functionality, you can always start with just managing a sheet very similar to this, right? So this is where your projects are going to live, your requests are going to live. You can update your statuses for each of these projects just on this sheet, and we can build lots of metrics, and we can build really beautiful dashboards, really meaningful reports off of this single sheet, if that's where you want to start. The rest of this demo, however, is going to be more focused on how to use Smartsheet for more robust project management, where you're tracking your milestones, tracking tasks, deadlines, maybe even risks, budget, scope changes for each of these projects that you're choosing to execute on. And we'll talk about what that execution looks like in the next step. But before we get there, I do want to show you a dashboard that helps summarize all this information that we're capturing so that we can actually make sure that the work that we're planning on taking on is in alignment with our initiatives. So let's navigate there real quick back to my roadmap, clicking on the strategic alignment dashboard. As the name suggests, this strategic alignment dashboard is about ensuring that the work that you've identified along your intake sheet is in alignment with your organization's strategic goals. The top part of this dashboard is going to include key information about your portfolio, right? So first off, we have our initiatives laid out. Again, I kind of listed those initiatives earlier, but you can see then how are the projects from our intake sheet distributed across each of those initiatives. I can see that our project counts against each of these initiatives are pretty even. So that's good. I'm not putting more effort toward one particular initiative. We're kind of keeping things equally allocated. This next chart is showing how our objectives are in alignment with our project. So our objectives are going to be the strategic priorities that support those initiatives. So I can see that my work toward each of those objectives are also equal. Perhaps you want to see how projects are distributed in responsibility across your teams or departments to begin to see maybe if one department has more work assigned to them than others. I can see in this case our IT group, information technology, has the most amount of projects in alignment with it, so that team's going to be quite busy. Perhaps you want to see how these projects are distributed, or I'm sorry, how our projects are aligning with our budget allocation, right? Budget allocation is often important to capture as well, right? By tracking where funds are going towards certain projects related to these initiatives, you can see where there may be budgetary discrepancies if there are any. So you might notice in my budget allocation chart here, there's quite a delta between the money that's being spent toward our Safer Smartopia initiative versus really all of the other initiatives, definitely against our transit transformation project. Now, that could mean a lot of different things for your organization, right? Maybe in my case, the investment in a safer Smartopia, maybe that initiative just inherently requires less money, less investment than our other initiatives, but maybe it tells a bigger story and illustrates a bigger problem that might be happening. So again, we just want to provide you the information in that summary so you can make those insights for yourself and for the work that your team is responsible for. As I scroll down this dashboard, we are getting a calendar view. This is going to be our roadmap. That's going to tell us quite a few things about our portfolio in a very quick glance. This calendar is helping us understand what programs and what projects are going on, when they're going on, and if there's could be any significant impact to your end users, right? If I saw that there were multiple projects, maybe even multiple high priority projects that were all scheduled to end around the same time, right? That might give me some pause because, right, if I've got all these important projects that are happening, similar teams who are working on them, they're going to be really over allocated because they also probably have the regular day jobs too that I need to consider, right? So those projects all scheduled to end around the same time could be at risk for, you know, employee engagement, for being able to actually succeed in those deadline goals, etc. So this is a great way to help capture that information really quickly and glean, make those insights. As I continue to scroll down this dashboard, as you can see, lots of information that we're able to gather just from that one intake sheet. This next section is looking at our OKR, or for those who aren't familiar, OKRs are objectives and key results. This is giving us high-level insights into how our objectives are succeeding or not succeeding. As we can see from the red down arrows that we have on some of these reports, our entrepreneurial growth goal, our sustainability objective do have results that are underperforming. So some projects that are in alignment with this work are not doing too hot. There are risks that have been identified, whether that's schedule risk, resource risk, budget risk, what have you. I get an overall score for that project and I can see that it's underperforming and I can see how that objective is progressing. So I get that information very quickly. That's going to help me evaluate my pipeline and figure out what I need to do, what I need to consider to get this work back on track, right? Perhaps there's a project that's in our pipeline that has a key result that's better aligned with this objective. That would make sense to replace the work that's currently undergoing, and maybe we can replace it with something else. Alternatively, the team could just pause taking on any other initiatives until those results are back into a green score, right? But whatever those next steps might be, I at least have the information that's going to help me figure out what those next steps should be. Again, that's of course going to change based on your team, your resources, where you are in your process. But again, we want to give you the information that you need so that you can make those decisions very quickly. All right, just a couple more sections to this dashboard. This next section is looking at the pipeline review. This is going to allow us to see what projects from our intake sheet. So remember that big sheet that we were just looking at with the dozens and dozens of projects on them. This pipeline review is limiting or showing me a subsection of those projects, just anything that is still kind of under consideration. So brand new ideas that have been identified, things that are under review, being taken in consideration to actually be in flight. Those are then organized by each of these initiatives. So if I did see, right, this entrepreneurial growth goal, I have one result that's not doing too hot. Is there something else in our, oh, it's the very first, oh, yeah. Pathway to prosperity, there's the objective. I want to see if there are any other projects related to that objective that are going to better suit that goal, right? I have all this information quickly available so I can make those insights and move forward with my day knowing that we're putting our efforts toward the right initiatives. In the final section of this dashboard, this intake health section is intended to give us an overall view of how healthy or how efficient the intake process is, right? Where are these requests coming from? What kind of work is being requested? How does it align with our initiatives? And if some of these requests are not recommended for execution, or we're using the term rejected here, a little bit harsh, not recommended, rejected, whatever suits your boat, floats your boat. What is the reasoning behind why some of those ideas that are being taken up by the team, why are they being rejected? Is it, multiple people are requesting the same type of work, so we've got duplications? Or is it because some of the ideas that people are coming up with aren't actually aligned with our initiatives? There's little budget for them, or there's not enough information related to them. We can help you slice and dice the information that you're gathering through your intake and spit out information that's going to be really useful, especially for requesters, to understand kind of where the progress of work is, and where they can put more effort toward other things, or take these rejection reasons into consideration so that they can submit better ideas next time. And the last item on this dashboard that I'm going to point out is this service level agreement, or SLA section. If you are accepting ideas to help support your strategic initiatives, so people are coming up with projects that are going to help progress toward those initiatives, and you want to provide information back to those requesters on how long to expect for a decision to be made, this is a great way to do so. These metrics can be automatically calculated and can be displayed on dashboards similar to this if you so choose. So overall, this dashboard is really helping illustrate how well our planned projects are aligning with our strategic goals, right? Does our plan of action, does our money, does our response match up with our initiatives, or are there changes that need to be made to the work that we are taking on? And do we need to put more resources or take resources away from certain work that's happening? We want to provide you a dashboard like this so you can gather those insights for your own work. Okay, so lots of insights available into our pipeline from this dashboard. I now want to pivot to talk about how we manage an individual project. So if I think about where we are on our roadmap, we're going to head into this second section where we're talking about prioritization and execution. We did touch a little bit on prioritization as we were talking about how those pipeline projects are kind of in alignment with our work, and if we need to replace some work with other things that might be in better alignment. So let's talk about execution now. So if I head back into my intake sheet, right, we talked about how each of these rows are representing an individual project. And again, for those folks who are newer to Smartsheet or are just simply newer to tracking projects in general, right, you may just manage the work for a particular project just directly on this sheet. But for those teams who are ready for a more robust project management tool, right, I've got this project called Community Voices where we want to establish forums for citizen input on city initiatives, right? Pretty vague for this demonstration, but hopefully maybe this is aligns with something that your team is doing, right? So I want to increase and empower the voices of our community members so that they can engage with our government. So there's probably a lot of steps that need to be done to achieve this type of project, right? I'm going to need lots of different types of resources. There's lots of tasks that need to get done. We need to coordinate amongst a lot of outreach coordinators or volunteers. We've got money, funding related to this item, tons of stuff that I want to track, right? And again, for those teams who are ready to do that in a more robust way, this is an example of how we can achieve that. I have a link to this project, and this link to this project environment can actually automatically be generated for you through a tool that we offer called Control Center. It's an automation engine that essentially says, okay, I have a project that I want to begin, and when I'm starting a project, I know that I need a schedule, like a project plan. I know that I need maybe a risk and issue log, a budget tracker, a RACI matrix, right? Responsibilities matrix, right? I have all these assets and all these things that I need to help execute on this work. So instead of me having to create that from scratch for all of these projects that have been approved across my pipeline, right, and taking that administrative time to do that, to create that and make sure, try to like manually ensure that it's all standardized across all the other projects that I'm managing, why not have Smartsheet create a template for me instead? So this is what an example of that template could look like. I'm going to navigate right into that project dashboard. So again, we're working on this project called Community Voices. And this dashboard is going to give me those high-level insights into the progress of this work, right? And the progress of this work is going to be summarized here based on the actual work that you're executing and tracking within your project plan, within your risk log, within your budget tracking sheet, etc. And all of those documents are listed up at the top. Of course, this is customizable to you. So if you don't need this many items, that's totally okay. If you need more, that's also okay. If you need less, that's okay. We're here to help you build out the solution that's going to be the right fit for your team. This is just one example. But as I go through this dashboard, I want you to think about how, right, the summaries that are listed here are based on what my teams are actually executing on at those sheet levels. We'll get there in a moment. But I've got some quick details like what's the overall information about the project, right? What's the description? Who's leading this? What are the dates around this project? And you'll actually notice that the key details about this project, especially in this top section, are actually automatically pulling from the information in our intake sheet. So that's going to help save time. Smartsheet knows where to pull this information from so that you're not having to manually update anything, manually type any of this information yourself. If you've already done your due diligence and have approved these key details about the project, why accidentally have to write them over and then accidentally input the wrong type of information, right? Let's just carry that information automatically from the intake sheet. And if we're tracking specific tasks related to this project, right? How are those tasks going, right? Or how complete are we done with the project? What do we have left to do? What's the overall status of the milestones that are happening? And if there are outcomes that we are trying to track related to this project, right? If there are key things that we're looking for this product to achieve, what are those key things and what's the status of that work? Are we on track to complete it to actually achieve that outcome, or are we off track and need to put other resources or kind of replan what we're doing? Right, so tons and tons of information can be tracked across your dashboard. For those who are newer to Smartsheet, I've mentioned this before, but I want to reiterate here. This dashboard is going to be a real-time update of whatever is being tracked within the system, right? So if I do have a project plan, which we're going to navigate to in just a second, if we're managing most of our work from this project plan, right? Tracking the tasks that need to get done, tracking who's responsible for those tasks, when they should be done by, as long as our teams are interacting with this sheet, understanding what they're responsible for, and actually tracking the completion of those tasks in the timelines that have been outlined to them, all the updates that are made to this sheet will then track back and be updated on this dashboard. So whenever you're looking at this dashboard or any of the other dashboards that we've looked at so far, it's always going to show you real-time, up-to-date information. That's really the beauty of Smartsheet, these automated reporting roll-ups. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time within these project plans or within the budget sheet or the risk and issue log, because actually my colleague Chaz, who's doing a demo right after me, is going to talk about how different levels of workers or different people within different roles are going to be interacting with your solution, how they're going to have a more streamlined way of doing that. Chaz is going to talk to you all about how we can streamline that in a moment. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time here about thinking about that, but I do want to talk to you about how an individual might interact with a sheet like this, right? If I am an individual contributor on this project, how am I going to collaborate with my team here? see, where do I want to start? There's so many different options here. So when I think about interacting with a project plan like this, there are key collaboration tools that we have available to you. So of course, being able to update the cells, right, that just is going to depend on your permission level. As long as you have access to the sheet, you can make those updates. But we also have ways of tracking documentation along a project as well. So if I am responsible, I know Devin is assigned here, but if I was responsible for defining the scope of a project and I have that scope definition available, right? I might put that directly onto my project plan, but if I'm doing that, let's say in a Word document or in a PowerPoint slide or some other artifact, instead of having that artifact kind of live in the ether, maybe only on my computer where I have access to it, I can share that document amongst my team directly on row 27 where this project information is, or this task information is. Click on that little paperclip icon on the left, and I have this panel pop up where I can begin to attach documents. So again, if I have that Word document, if I have a PowerPoint slide or any other related documentation, a photo, a video, I can upload that file from my computer. Or again, if it lives somewhere in a cloud-based storage, maybe in OneDrive or Google Drive, I can use those and link that document here. So lots of different ways to create and store documentation. There's no limit on the number of attachments you can add to a row. There's no limit to the number of attachments you can add across the sheet. So this can be a great way to create not just a repository of what tasks need to get done, but also a repository of the documentation that your team is responsible for gathering and delivering on. All right. We also have automated workflows within our project plans so that people can stay on top of the work that they have assigned to them, right? If I've got work that's assigned to me and maybe some upcoming due dates that are approaching, instead of me having to manually audit the sheet all the time, go back to the sheet, find where my name is, find what my due dates are, and having to do this across not just this Community Voices plan, but the dozen other projects that I'm also have key things that I'm responsible for. Instead of navigating to all those different sheets, all those different dashboards, I can rely on Smartsheet automations to keep me informed of when I have things upcoming. So we have lots of different automations available. I'm just going to go to our template center so you can see some ideas, but let's talk through a couple of them, right? Maybe I want to be reminded on a specific date, right? I have a due date that's upcoming. I want to be reminded of that due date a week before, 2 days before, the day of, right? An automated reminder is going to help me manage that. But we can also do just, I don't know, context-based automations as well. So I want to notify whoever the project manager is when a task is overdue, right? This item was due yesterday, the status is not yet complete. Let's notify the person who's assigned to the task as well as the project manager so that we can mitigate that, get it back on track, get it completed or get it updated in the system, or push out the end date if that's necessary, right? But we want to at least keep people informed about what's happening on the sheet, about important changes that are happening, deadlines, what have you, so that the work stays on track and you can hopefully get to your end date on time and on budget. That's really our goal with these automations. All right. Okay, so I just wanted to show you a couple of those tools that we offer for managing projects in Smartsheet. Of course, there are a ton more functions that are available. We can certainly send over some documentation on, right, if you're newer to Smartsheet, newer to managing projects within Smartsheet. We have tons and tons of help articles that kind of outline those functions, so we'd be happy to pass those along if you are interested. Just let us know. All right. So let's say that we are managing that Community Voices project plus a dozen other projects, 50 other projects, 100 other projects happening all at the same time that are meant to drive toward those strategic initiatives. How do I get a summary view of how all those projects are going so that I don't have to go to each of those individual project plans to see? I'm going to head over into this last section, which is our actionable insights. In this dashboard, we're going to see the overall performance and the health of all of the work, all the projects that we're managing across the board. So not just the community initiatives project, but the 50 other projects that I have approved and are ongoing right now as well. Okay, so lots of information that we can gather about these projects. I can see if there are any initiatives that are at risk, any projects in particular that are at risk. If I were to click on any of these metrics, it could take me to a report to see what those 10 are, what those 3 are. But again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to drill down into those sections. Keep going through this dashboard here. If you are tracking budget information, we can definitely help you summarize that budget information in a way that makes sense to you and your team, right? If you just want to know simple budget information like what is our actual spend versus what we had planned to spend or what our budget is available, right? We can show what that full budget is, what's been expensed so far, and then what's remaining or how much you've gone over budget by. But we can also do some more insightful metrics on that information as well. If there are returns on investment that you're trying to help capture, right? This is an example of what that could look like and a summary of those individual initiatives and kind of how those are progressing toward those benefits. And of course, since this dashboard is actionable, we have included a set of variables that can help determine the health of active work. So we've got some metrics like high priority risks that don't have a mitigation plan, right? If there are things that have been identified within our project plans that have risks associated with them, action items, right? Budget information is wrong, scope of work is wrong, or whatever the case is, but there's not a plan to help move that risk off of the list, then I want to have that information very quickly available so that I can see that and I can make an assessment on what to do and get a mitigation set up so that we can get this project back on track. Issues without an action plan is kind of similar to the risk without a mitigation plan. This is aggregating all project issues that don't have a plan associated with it. So this is going to signal that project timelines, resources, or budget performance could be at risk, and the team has not yet developed that plan to address it appropriately. And then if there are critical change requests, right? Maybe you have a change log as part of your project toolkit, and there are change requests that have been made, and you want to know how that's going to have an impact, right? If it's going to impact your schedule, delay it by far too long, or increase your budget by way too much, we want to be able to see that information very quickly. Again, if I were to click into these metrics, you can see my cursor change. I can click into it. It can show me a list of what is actually critical, what risks have been identified, what issues have been identified that don't have a plan associated with it, so that I can then take action on those items and get them back on track and hopefully lower these numbers next time we look at this dashboard. And as I scroll through this dashboard, I have a couple other reports available, right? A list of active projects, some information about budget performance. These are going to provide that summarized overview, of course, of how our projects are progressing. I see a quick list of what our teams are responsible for, what the progress is like. And if I'm a leader in an organization, this actionable insights dashboard might be one of the first places that I look in Smartsheet when I'm trying to get an understanding of how the work is progressing, what my team is up to, and where I may need to take a step in and help look for those risks, mitigate those challenges that might be happening, and get this work back into a green health status. Okay. So the dashboards that we've looked at today so far, which I know we've looked at a lot of them, they've each given us a lot of information. These are extremely detailed, and these dashboards are fitting for leaders and contributors who have a very active hand in the work that is supporting these strategic initiatives. But for those who just want to stay informed about the overall status of organizations' initiatives, so maybe you're thinking about employees who, again, aren't actively working toward these initiatives, but they're employees who still need to understand like how the organization is progressing toward those initiatives. Or maybe even you're even thinking about your constituents in your community and being able to share your progress against these initiatives. The last item that we're going to take a look at least in my section today, is going to be a really beautiful summary that cuts out the clutter of the individual project statuses, and is more of an automated summary of all of that background work that your team is working so hard to execute and track, and giving us a really, really high level overview of what the goal is, what work is being done toward that goal, and just a quick outline of how that work is progressing. And I can see just some very, very quick insights into how each of these initiatives are progressing. And this is going to automatically update as your teams, as your contributors are actually executing at the individual project level. So we're seeing that real roll up of information really nicely from project execution through prioritizing what those projects are going to be, making sure that they're in alignment with a strategic goal, and then reporting against each strategic goal through something like this or through the actionable insights dashboard. So I know I've taken you through a lot of different items, but hopefully this has been a nice illustration of how we can use Smartsheet to centralize our work efforts in one tool, right? So people have one place they can go to see their projects that they're assigned to, see what tasks they're assigned to, update their progress, but then have that information roll up into a standard report that eliminates the time that you might be spending manually collecting updates, and creating one place that folks can go to get that overall review of all the work that's that your team is so working so hard on. I apologize. I thank you for your time. We looked at Smartsheet from a lot of different lenses in this section. So I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague Chaz to talk about how we can use another tool that we offer at Smartsheet called a workup to help simplify the user experience. All right. Of course, if you have any questions, please do feel free to enter them into the Q&A. But yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen and pass the mic over to Chaz.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Amy. I'll go ahead and get that screen shared. Just a moment here. And I'll trust my team to tell me if my slides are not showing. Everyone, thanks so much for the time and attention today. Amy and Sean just took you through a heroic amount of conceptual content as well as a pretty robust ecosystem there. I saw the Q&A kind of blowing up as we were going. I am here to help us get home by helping simplify. So we talked about how large and complex and different your hundreds of unique organizations can be. And what we're going to do is see how Smartsheet, in addition to what you've seen so far, will bring visibility to each of those various stakeholder groups while creating guardrails around how all of this alignment, collaboration, communication, and Sean, thanks so much for the term sustainable accountability will work inside of a live solution. I've been with Smartsheet for about 6 years, just shy of that. I've helped thousands of organizations, both in state and local government, nonprofit space, and our commercial enterprises implement these solutions. And what I'm about to introduce has a lot to do with getting the adoption and getting the usage and really bringing these ecosystems to life. Now, while some of you on the call I may have met if we've worked one-on-one together, there are many of you that probably have never thought about this, but I would encourage you to think that in the work you do today, you are already building what I might call an app. As everyone has been saying today, Smartsheet is predominantly a no-code platform, meaning you don't have to code, you don't have to develop. I'm a solution engineer, and I would cry if you made me write a line of code. Everything I'm about to show you, everything Amy showed you, has been put together through how Smartsheet empowers us as a technology platform. So what the heck do I mean by app? I mean that you're thinking about process flows, where things start, where they finish, and all of the gates in between, or the decision forks. You're thinking about user experience. If I've got people out in the field versus at a desk versus anywhere in between in our hybrid working ways, we need to bring in and roll all those folks into these projects and initiatives. And if those of you who are on the call are formal program managers, you're also thinking about how orchestrating all of this can be really challenging, regardless of the tool of choice. So when we're thinking about creating these solutions to problems that we have, trying to achieve, better responsibility on how we're able to allocate funds, more efficient delivery with fewer quality failures there. What we're looking at is how do we roll out solutions really quickly? Whoops, got to move my webinar out of the way there. Whoop, pop back. How do we roll out those solutions quickly? how do we drive better participation and usage? Certainly than paper, certainly than Excel, certainly than those really stale old tools that are overcomplicated. And how do we provide this productive focus for that sustainable accountability of that whole hierarchy, the entire organization that really needs to be conducted here? So that is why a few years ago, I believe it was actually during late 2020, Smartsheet launched Work Apps, a way of supporting remote collaboration by consolidating Smartsheet solutions together. Those of you who are brand new to Smartsheet and are asking about individual dashboards, are asking about starting in that first sheet, this is the direction that that goes in. As you saw from Amy, we have this whole humming ecosystem that can be brought together. And the idea is, how do I make that streamlined so everyone can participate? How do I do this in a way that doesn't require heavy development investment in case we need to turn on a dime, which we very often need to do in strategic transformation? And importantly, scale, whether that is number of initiatives, amount of dollars spent, number of people who need to be brought together. How, again, do I bring this all together? So what Work Apps is going to add, in addition to what you're going to see on my screen, is largely about tailoring that user experience even further so that everyone has a more predictable way of interacting with what they are doing in their work and what is needed for monitoring, reporting, unblocking of projects. So I'll take us into that no-code builder experience, but I'd actually like to land in what it looks like from the outside in. Amy showed a project, and that particular project is one that we're about to pick up inside of Smartsheet Work Apps. From there, I'm then going to introduce you to more of those capabilities, and you'll see how they build on these other ways of constructing unique Smartsheet solutions. Again, in case folks are asking in the chat, while I am in a live environment, everything you're seeing is in Smartsheet. Unfortunately, I can't just pass it all and have you share it or make a direct copy of it. Like we've said, these are not downloadable solutions, so instead it's more of a matter of working with you, figuring out what you want to bring in and bringing it to life. So let's do that demo. Now, you've already seen this dashboard with Amy. I'm not necessarily going to revisit what it contains, but I am going to highlight that while we are in Smartsheet, we are also now inside of a different experience called Work Apps. Now, Work Apps gets its name not only from all that application element I mentioned, but also, again, folks might be out in the field and might need to literally use an app from their device. Everything in Smartsheet is pretty mobile responsive, but this is particularly designed for mobile ease of use. Now, Amy took us into the project plan and a few other elements of community voices, the work was happening, how we plan it, how we drive proof of work with attachments, how we drive accountability with reminders around deadlines. She mentioned I was going to focus on risk, which is exactly right. So inside of any individual effort, it's very common that we might have a set of templates to manage this project. You can see a variety of them listed as pages on the side here of the work app. Now within this project, I can see that information, as always, presented as a spreadsheet, pretty straightforward there. I'm going to go ahead and slide this pane over to the side, and I want to call out some of the features that we have here. You may be new to the idea of something like Control Center or even a Smartsheet template. You may be new to the way Smartsheet reports work. But one of the ideas when we're driving communication accountability is that if Tamika needs to flag something that is in need of escalation, because it is going to impact our timeline, all Tamika has to do is check that box and either save or let Smartsheet autosave, which it of course does. I tend to turn that off. That ultimately can trigger that cascade of reporting, that cascade of notifications, putting it in front of a risk management group or a steering committee, whatever your organizational structure might be for those sorts of things. So when we're in Work Apps, what we've done, and you'll see this even more when I take us behind the scenes a little bit, we've intentionally split the end user experience, what you're seeing now, from the solution building experience. You've still got a heck of a lot of power in Smartsheet. Those attachments, the ability to ping someone via email to get them to actually comment or update your spreadsheet. You still have Smartsheet, but we've streamlined it to an extent that it doesn't take folks out of the work they're supposed to be doing in front of them. I'll give you a quick example. As a project contributor, I need to know who's on the team. Quite frankly, in my personal experience, I'm a resident of Seattle in King County, Washington. I have volunteered and I've signed up to volunteer using Smartsheet through our regional housing authority. Now I needed a series of contacts, and unfortunately that particular group was not using Smartsheet in this particular way, so it was kind of lost in email and spreadsheets and updates like that and the text contact list. But with Smartsheet, I could pop this open and immediately see who I need to contact. I can have their email or other contact information available to me, but I am a contributor. I'm not the project manager. I shouldn't be managing the allocation to the project or who has a specific role. Instead, I'm just given perfect visibility through automatic view-only settings, and there's no confusion for the end users who are participating. Now, we're within that one project, and Sean and Amy talked about this layered ecosystem that Smartsheet creates. If I think of work apps, and sorry for maybe the blue collar reference here, but I think of it as hiding the plumbing. There's a lot more going on in Smartsheet than any individual might necessarily need to know. Think of the way you manage your projects and your initiatives. You have certain folks who know certain things and have certain levels of access. Work apps programatizes that. So I have zoomed out from a project level work app, let's call it that. I'm now at more of a portfolio level for today's state and local government solution spotlight. I'm seeing that project that we were in, and importantly, I could do things like this. Look at a Smartsheet report that across all projects will indicate which items logged into risks, actions, issues, or decisions. That's that RAID acronym in case you haven't seen it. It automatically brings this together. And you've already seen how I can edit, of course, from this work app. Notice that this is spanning more than one project that I'm associated to. Now, of course, we want to be intentional. We don't want to spread our resources too thin. We don't want to have folks spread peanut buttered across too many projects. But importantly, as an individual, if I need to go in and quickly make edits, those escalations like we talked about, I'm able to directly edit those individual risks while bubbling them up. This is not just about risks. This can also be about outcomes that you are helping drive, again, creating a direct visibility between your impact, the project, and the initiative, or as simple as, hey, maybe you don't need to dive into the project. You only have one task and it hasn't even started yet. Think about the peace of mind of putting everything on one plate right into one space. Lastly, I want to highlight that while I've used mostly Smartsheet links here, we can bring in any of the apps that are supported for, say, our dashboard web content widgets. You can put other pages in here, Google Docs, Microsoft Pages, those are all fine as you're building these out. But importantly, I'm going to go in and use a Smartsheet form. Looks a little bit like my background, as you can see, but I want to, again, stay in that theme of risk. As an individual contributor, I'm at the front lines of the organization, as Sean was saying. I might have more awareness of the detail of what's happening, and I need to bring that signal back to leaders. I need them to understand and be able to do something about it, support it, unblock it. In case you've never used a Smartsheet form, I've kept mine simple and a little bit silly, as you can see, but they are designable. The logo, the image, the text in terms of guidance, field verification, conditional formatting. This is not a forms demo, but just using it within our context. As an individual contributor, I can say that this would be bad to happen, it's possible, or is it likely to happen? I've pre-filled this form so you don't have to watch me type. I'm going to go ahead and submit it. Our forms, of course, can also be reloaded to leave that open and have them capture another risk or something that needs leadership attention. Now, this is all about other kinds of collaboration, not just packaging the solution. So Amy showed how things are connected. I've hidden all of the rules and logic and backend kind of behind the walls of the app. And I've got a relatively simple demo here, but I understand that your organizations and your solutions might span many, many other layers. So what you're seeing in terms of two roles, I'll go ahead and flip this. What you're seeing in terms of two roles, what we're going to be able to do is have as many different roles as you would like who are granted access to the specific sheets, reports, dashboards, and other Smartsheet or other assets that they may need to see. So for example, I pulled up a dashboard that Amy left off on. This is literally the same dashboard. And the reason I'm able to see it within this work app is because I have more of an administrative or leadership-based role. Don't worry about those names. Those are 100% configurable. I just kept it real bare bones so it was real clear today. I now am playing the role of someone else who is at a different altitude within this organization, and they need to make some of those strategic choices, essentially what Amy was seeing and what Amy would be seeing. Now, earlier we highlighted risk, so I'm going to jump right to governance and risk management. Amy hasn't shown this dashboard yet, but what I wanted to highlight is that information that needs to flow through the solution, those risks that are flagged, whether they are within an individual project or they are at the portfolio level, they essentially flow automatically into this dashboard. So they are captured and shown So this is, again, just an example of what a risk matrix might look like. This is one a colleague of mine found and put together. That small portion actually is in our solution center, and it is largely about making sure that supply chains weren't impacted during that COVID experience. So it may be a little bit small. I'm going to make it a little bit larger here. I want you to notice that our big bad risk for demo purposes has automatically been captured and automatically been slotted into the high risk category. That was the form that you just saw me submit. So whether I need to capture information and it is a temp or a volunteer or an intern who is doing it versus it is someone who is a contracted PM or an external partner, anyone can be shared to collaborate within this experience. Anyone can have proper role-based guardrails put around that experience, and communication is facilitated by that experience instead of falling back to the total mess of paperwork, email, phone calls. We want to help you tame a lot of that variation, a lot of that noise, by essentially packaging it into something that is much simpler than just an open-ended spreadsheet. It creates the finesse of how folks engage with these experiences while still keeping that full power of Smartsheet, the formulas, the automations, and the like. I literally built most of this yesterday, so I'm going to show you how. Let's go ahead and edit this app. Whoop, that's fun. Live demo. Let's go again. Hop on back. Pardon me during some navigation. Let's get right back in, folks. And there it is. Oh, looks like I'm getting an error again. I'll go ahead and pause while I am trying to bring this back up. As I am working on this, team, can I check if there was anything in the chat that might help me buy some time here?
Yeah, I think someone asked a really good question earlier about how to get started on this. I'm going to go through it a little bit more in a second, but if you want to go to the Solution Center in Smartsheet and look for OKR solutions or strategic plan solutions, there's a few options there to kind of get a very basic version of this up and running.
I'll go ahead and unpause on that screen. Let's go ahead and say OKR. And just so folks know, we can bring that up as well as that check. Yep, looks like I'm encountering some slowness here. Let's go ahead and get that open as well. And I'm seeing from my team that these are also going to be linked directly into the dashboard that we're following up with. So folks will see this in a moment. Sean, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a moment. I'm going to see if I can get that build experience back up. Apologies for the interruption, but if you can go ahead with your section, and then if time allows, I'll pop back into mine.
Yeah, and my section kind of ties a lot into what everyone's already talked about, but it's really more the how. My background, just so everyone knows, is from a delivery perspective. I actively deliver solutions. I have a team of people who deliver solutions. So I want to give you all the opportunity to either try it yourself, see how far you can get, and then if you need more help, come to us. It would be my ideal state. But the kind of two options I'd outline. One is start with Solution Center, start with something simple, like the OKR solution we are going to link. It has basically a project plan for all objectives and key results, which is a simple way of doing strategic planning management. And then if you want to go a little bit further than that and you have more robust project planning and dependency tracking that you want to do, that's when a lot of the stuff that I'm about to talk about will come into play. So the way we think about project and portfolio management or strategic planning is through these 6 disciplines that you see here. We have strategic planning, demand intake, portfolio prioritization, sourcing and planning, work execution, and reporting. And strategic planning is one of the parts of this. It kind of sits on top of the whole ecosystem itself. And then it informs things like demand. What are we working to get work? Like what work are we trying to gather? Portfolio prioritization is what should we work on. You can often use a strategic plan to be like, this is a project that's going to be a little bit more high priority since it actively helps us meet our strategy. And then sourcing and planning is who works on that project and what skills do they have, how much work do they have on their plate today. Execution is the project plan itself, the RAID logging, the status updating, and then reporting is much more like, here is everything for initiative A, B, C, D, E, F, G and here's a dashboard for it, and then here's an overall dashboard for our entire organization. All this sits on top of the Smartsheet platform, just so you guys know. But the way we start all these organizational change initiatives is through assessing that set of disciplines and saying, hey, how good are you at doing strategic planning or resourcing or intake management or prioritization? And then we'll say, that's your baseline. This is where we're starting today. And what we'll do with you is build a plan to say, like, here is where you want to get to, and here's what the value of getting to that point is, and here's where we're going to go improve that. And parts of the solutions that we've built will directly help kind of improve your own strategic planning strategy or your own budget tracking strategy. So we'll kind of work with you to better tailor which ones you want to do in what order. Ideally, through this process too, we kind of give you the skills to build it on your own. Or you can use us if you don't have enough time to do that work. Now, the overall delivery framework that we approach this with is pretty basic. You could try and kind of copy some of these based on the solution we're going to give you as well as the presentation here. But align is just, what do we say? How do we say the work we do? How do we organize the work we do? How mature are we at doing the work we do? And just the more fluffier parts of the process, but the most important parts too. We kind of take data dictionaries, we do stakeholder analyses, we do organizational hierarchies, and we look at pain points. I would recommend anyone do those things if you're going to go into a process like this. Then we take those and we design them via user stories, process maps, build architecture diagrams with you, just trying to figure out how to better take the context of your organization and plug it into a Smartsheet solution. And then we'll actually do development if you'd want us to. If this was your world too, I'd recommend you do kind of like chunks of sprint-based development, so you're not necessarily only having to come to us for work. But in this, you're going to have, a week of building, a day of demos, a feedback session, and then we're going to iterate through that with you. And then finally, we're going to train you, we're going to up-level you, we're going to document the solution, and then we're going to deploy it. So all these things are possible to be done without the Smartsheet consulting team, but I think we do it really well. We've been doing it for ages at this point. So if you want to do it quickly, let us know. Some examples of solution artifacts that we're going to bring to the table and that you could probably build yourself. And I'd recommend everyone do this one specifically, especially if you're trying to do a large cross-functional initiative, is to build a data dictionary, because a data dictionary is just the verbiage for how you call things. Certain project is a project, or project is a program, or project is an initiative. You'd be surprised how you could walk into an organization and have a room of people say completely different things for something that's super basic overall. But having that plain language understanding is the basis for understanding how to approach PPM overall. We also will build stakeholder analyses of like, who are the parties that we need to influence? What do they struggle with? What do they want? What are the outcomes they want to achieve? And how is this going to actually impact their day-to-day, so that when we're going into the deployment phase, we actually have a tailor-made enablement and change management plan. Because without thinking through these things, you could release something into the wild that could be just completely unadopted, and that's the last thing we want, especially with strategic planning, because it's something that's hyper cross-functional. Additionally, we have a work hierarchy, which I'll show you an example of one in a minute. But this is just like how the reporting structure of the work should be flowing from, the individual project level tasks all the way up to the project management group. There might be program management to project and portfolio management group too, and then the EPMO at the top. This is an example of one we built for a furniture company. So it's not necessarily tied directly to city government, but it still stands. You could replace program management with departmental management or agency management there. But the goal of this is to basically say the data flows from here to here to here, and then here's what data goes to that next level, because you're not going to show the EPMO the same data you're showing the project management organization. Like, they're not going to want every single task that exists under the sun. And then an example of what that could look like, and this is a little chaotic, but just bear with me. If we think about all data as water flowing around a system or a closed loop kind of ecosystem, you have your strategic planning, which is setting the tone for what should be worked on. But you're also going to have people pushing work from the just general field. And the goal is to say, hey, these ideas that are coming up from here align towards that strategic plan in some capacity, so that you can actually say, this is a higher priority or is not a higher priority. Because as we all know, we're getting asked to do a million things. So why not demystify that and tie it to something that is actually agreed upon by the organization to be valuable? So once we get that shell of strategic planning and demand management built, we can then fill it with better work management strategies such as work sourcing. Who works on it? Who has the skills to get this work done? Do we need to hire more people? Do we need to contract this work out? What's the status of this? What are the milestones? Who, what, when, where, how for that project in its existing point in time? And then you have what's the work view to the leadership, to the PMOs, to everyone around us. And then that will feed back towards the prioritization strategy. So it's all a loop of it prioritizes, it goes through sourcing, it delivers, it goes back into the reporting structure, and then back eventually to our strategic planning view. So we're going to help you build something along those lines if you are at the point of needing something like this. A lot of people don't necessarily need to start here. Some people just need an intake sheet. So it really varies based on where your current stage is in your life cycle. And overall, that was most of the content that I had today. So I wanted to make sure Chaz got to walk through his part and answer any questions if you guys had them.
While we wait for questions to come in, Sean, thanks so much. If you stop sharing your screen, I'll pick up exactly where I left off. Thankfully, no-code tools work both ways. They're faster to troubleshoot sometimes as well. So let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. Folks in the audience, thanks so much for following along with the brief interruption. And everyone can now see behind the scenes of work apps. This was what I was trying to get into. And just want to talk for a second about what we mean by builder, solution design, and so forth. Today, obviously, with the 5 or so minutes I have, is not going to be a thorough training on all the ins and outs of Smartsheet, but we'll build on some of the fundamentals. What you're seeing in this builder experience is the idea that we are going to create these applications out of a series of pages. Sheet supports dashboards, forms, Smartsheet dynamic views, web content from external sources. That's what this list on the side is, just like you saw earlier from that end user experience. But within each page, we are provided with a series of options. We're going to have the most options when it comes to individual sheets because those are so powerful and so flexible. I myself was won over before working at Smartsheet. My prior employer had me on the road, and I used Smartsheet in the app-based experience. I would have loved something like this, but it was far too in the past for it. This particular sheet we've set up to work in our card view rather than any of those other views. We can choose the settings for the card view or the grid view or the Gantt view, whatever you've chosen. And we can set a separate distinct view for mobile in case we've optimized our design, our solution design for a certain kind of experience. We can also build these off of specific pre-made filters. One of the most popular ones across all of Smartsheet, since we're a collaborative environment, is to actually filter things for the current user, automatically recognize who is looking at it, only show them the data that is the most relevant to them. Now, because we're not just talking about one person, one app, one sheet, if we were, we wouldn't even need to use work apps in those cases. Instead, it's about bringing together all these different things for the different folks. That's where those roles are going to come in. So again, I didn't name our roles there, but what I can do is simply add a new one, give it a name, and set the permissions for each of the individual pages. Where do I want this individual to land when they log into the app for the first time? Should they see that dashboard? Should they be able to edit or view only on this sheet? All of those different settings. Now, additionally, I left Work Apps in its default branding, says Work Apps across the top. It's got that Smartsheet blue. But as you're thinking of building these, as you're thinking of maybe even using them externally, I mentioned my volunteer experience that really would have benefited from something like this. You can set all of these things. So while it will be in Smartsheet's platform, we've got that URL up at the top. They'll need a way to log in. We can essentially brand and govern this in all the ways that you've seen. Importantly, we can also preview this experience across any roles that are created to ensure that everything looks good. You've already seen my app, so I feel no need to preview it there with you. But I also want you to notice, and this is unique to work apps, it kind of aligns to something Sean was saying there, in the way that we deploy these solutions. By separating the build experience and the end user experience, it allows us to have a live version of the whole experience, the whole app, while we're making our changes. And then we can publish and make the app live with all of the changes. All of the projects that might be within it can be updated as well. This way, again, that nimbleness, that ability to respond to change. Sean, this even aligns to what you were just saying, a little happy accident there. What if you get really good end user input and you've almost completely finished the app? Smartsheet will allow you to come back in, make that change, push the update out. And now, whether it's dozens, hundreds, or thousands of folks who are using that app, they will all see the benefit of it. Sorry for the bit of a disjoint there. We are going to head back to a little bit of Q&A. John, I believe you're facilitating that and then taking us home. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'll drop off camera as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Angie, are you able to share your screen for me? Sweet. Thank you so much. Chaz, Sean, Amy, thank you guys so much. I can't thank you enough for putting all of that together. Just to quickly summarize it, with some 10,000 foot, very high level takeaways. I think number one of our most common use cases, across the board is strategic planning. State and local government definitely, but really across all the industries that we're partnered in, utilizing Smartsheet to mitigate risk within your strategic transformation process, and ensure that you are staying aligned with the goals that you've outlined for yourself. Number two is we can help standardize and scale your strategic plan to ensure that efficiency, standardization, and then alignment across every stakeholder. Like Chaz was showing in work apps, we can meet everyone where they are to get work done as efficiently as possible and provide that reporting that is needed. And then finally, you've heard me say it, I'll continue to say it, Smartsheet can act as a single source of truth across your agency, department, division, whatever it might be, in a variety of ways. So again, strategic planning was our focus today. Our last showcase was focused on grant and contract management, but there is so much more that we're able to do. So please get in touch with us and let's work together to help build that vision. Next slide. There we go. Again, thank you everyone on the participant side for joining for the showcase and for the engagement and thoughtful questions throughout. A quick reminder that everyone will be receiving a link to the recording. If you can, please take a moment and scan this QR code to provide some feedback for us. What would you want to see next time, as well as let us know if you want to continue the conversation, and have your account team reach out to you. I said it at the beginning, but really want to reiterate that there isn't really a whole lot that Smartsheet can't do. If your wheels are turning, if there's something keeping you up at night, please brainstorm with us. We're very well acclimated at working with customers to evaluate and get these solutions implemented, as Sean showed. And then we're here to be a supportive partner every step along the way as well. We do have a few minutes left on the schedule for Q&A, but I understand schedules are busy. We've taken a lot of your time on this Tuesday. So if you need to take off, please have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week. And thank you all again for joining. We look forward to connecting with you soon. Team, as far as questions, are there questions in the chat that we wanted to answer? Or are there any participants that have additional questions? Please put them in the Q&A or reach out to your account team.
Well, thanks, John. And we can stay on just a few more minutes too, just in case folks do have questions or, thinking about it, think the wheels are turning. But thank you so much for your time today, and definitely fill out the survey. Let us know what you'd like to see next time. We want to make sure that this is content that is going to make your life easier.
Sean, I'll let you answer the beginning from scratch. What's the estimate to build the model that was shown today?
The model that was shown, so the EPMO-esque solution, it could be anywhere from like a $30,000 to like $100,000 solution, depending on how complex it gets. $100,000 would be like integrations and multiple project types and huge solution structures. But I'd say like probably to get it done right, if you have zero experience and you want it kind of the most basic version, probably like 30 to 30,000-ish.
Awesome, thank you.
And then briefly describe how project stage gates may be used in visibility into project level or project stages in flight. With that summary sheet / intake sheet that you saw, effectively you could take each stage gate that's standardized across every single project and then have a metric that tracks the progress of that stage gate. So you could say, in a column-based format. Here's every stage gate for every project's going down, and then compare and contrast like time to complete stage gate, things like that. So there's a lot of ways that we could integrate that into the platform.
For the dashboards, there's a link in the Q&A for those icons. We'll send that in the follow-up, so you'll have that link as well. Sean, for the estimate in cost for that solution, can you also give an estimate in time as well?
Yeah, I'd say if you're using Control Center, the floor is going to be a month for timeline. And then it goes up from there to like 6 months with like robust onboarding if you're doing like a hyper cross-functional solution. But it can land often really much in between that. Like the 2 to 3 month is where I see most people land, just because you have a real job, right, of not necessarily just developing Smartsheet. So we have to balance that too. But non-control center solutions could be less than a month easily if you're using kind of the core templates and some more homegrown things.
And Sarah, for those who don't have an account team yet, just fill out the survey. We'll capture the email that you registered with and still have someone follow up with you and make sure you get slotted to the right people. And then there's one more question here, Sean, if you have it. For projects that span 3 to 5 years, is there a way to update project templates for active projects as we mature our process?
Yeah, so the way that Control Center would work is it is a point in time. So if you have 10 templates today and you provision it, those are the 10 templates that get provisioned for that project 3 years ago. If you have new templates added, all those new projects will always get those new templates, but you can also use the optional template button to add those templates retroactively to the old toolkit. You also have something called global updates, which can then retroactively change every project you have. So if I want to go add a new column to every single project plan or a new formula or a new report, I can go and retroactively add that to every existing project rather than have to do it myself manually. And then what if we already have a solution built with intake, project provisioning, like the layout that was presented today better? I mean, if you already have Control Center, I would say like you probably could just look at the layout, ask for the images needed in the color hex colors, and just go. I mean, if you wanted to do it yourself and you've already gotten to this point, maybe like a month. If you want us to do it, you could probably do it in like 2 weeks. That's it.
Yeah, and there's also an engagement we have called health check. So you could reach out to your account rep and ask for a health check or information on that, and that's where we would have someone from Sean's team connect with you and review your solution and give suggestions on here's all of the ways that we can see optimizing your current solution to be the most effective solution. And then last question, I think, do cost estimates include training for novices to Smartsheet, and at what scale across an agency or focused on one rep?
I did not see that question. So does the cost estimate? Yes, cost estimate would cover training across non-Smartsheet users, I think, if that's the question. What was the and at the end of that?
Across agencies, focused on one rep, or just general scale?
I don't think I understand that question. Sorry.
Right. For the training. So when you deploy a solution, what sort of training is included with that solution and what scale?
Yes. So we have 2 types of training, general Smartsheet training and then solution-specific training. We will always start people with general training just because we want to reduce your learning curve to get into the solution working with it quickly. But for the secondary part of solution-specific training, we will build it based on personas that we agree on. So things like individual contributor, project manager, executive, role ABC. So we can create specific trainings tailored to those user personas if they're outside of the agency too.
Perfect. Yep. And then Control Center can be purchased a la carte or as part of a larger plan, but we will make sure that all of the questions are answered and sent out. Follow-up, obviously scrubbing anyone identifying information, so you'll just have the question and the answer. So thank you again, everyone. This has been great, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you all so much.